Today I want to talk about Brad Davis, who is expected to be hired as LSU's new offensive line coach, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about Brad Davis, expected to be hired as the new offensive line coach at LSU. He is coming from Arkansas, where I thought he was one of the real great hires that Sam Pittman made in year one at Arkansas. And one of the reasons that I was so high on Arkansas going into last season and this one, quite frankly, is what he's able to do with that offensive line and how he was going to marry his style of offensive line with Kendall Brow's veer and shoot. And I really like their chances going into this 2021 season to make some noise. But I find it sort of shocking, that LSU is going after Brad Davis, but really that James Cregg is no longer offensive line coach at LSU. This news broke yesterday, and I didn't want to post about it because we still don't really know why James Cregg was fired, only that he was fired by Ed Orgeron and LSU. And knowing what LSU has had to deal with here in the past year plus with sexual assault scandals, and I think the NCAA is going to come down on them. I don't know if it's going to be level 1 infractions. I'm not sure how they're going to go after this because, for perspective here, Ohio State had Tattoo-Gate, and the way that the NCAA decided to punish them with the bowl ban was for stuff that they said they did in 2002, 2003, and not for the 5 players who sold their gold pants and other things for tattoos. Now, Ed Orgeron is also in a really interesting spot, but it's his spot, and he's getting paid $9 million to stand in it, in that he's got an offensively and defensively talented football team that was young last year and seemed experienced this year, but one of the reasons that they sucked last year, quite frankly, a reason why you might think that they suck this year, is the offensive line. But 2019, James Cregg is the offensive line coach that wins the Joe Moore Award. But you could also make an argument that that offensive line was not as good as people wanted it to be. Matter of fact, when I talked with my buddy Jeff Schwartz, who writes about the NFL for Fox and hosts Pac-12 radio on Sirius, he was saying they had to change up their rules, about the Joe Moore Award because of how LSU won the thing. I genuinely believe that LSU had a good offensive line in 2019. I don't know if it's the best. I don't know if it's the worst. I'm not an offensive line guru and say the way that I examine cornerback and safety play, right? I sit on the selection committee of the Jim Thorpe Award. But I know what I know from folks that played offensive line, including Schwartz and my buddy Jerry Ostrowski, and there are things that you could like about it, and there are things you don't like about it. All that said, James Cregg was the offensive line coach for those things, and he had a tremendous amount of experience, and he was a really great recruiter for LSU, so it kind of just comes out of the blue, so you would assume, and I have no reporting to do this, and I'm not reporting any of this, you would assume that there was something that Ed Orgeron found out that made the situation untenable. What I am quite literally shocked by is how quickly Ed Orgeron zeroed in on Brad Davis and how quickly Brad Davis accepted the job, because you don't see coaches make a move in June. You just don't. Assistant, head coach, otherwise. Even the Lance Leipold hiring in Kansas, or at Kansas, I should say, in Kansas, in May caught us all off guard because we're just not used to seeing it. We're used to the coaching carousel basically finding its end before National Signing Day in February. This year, with COVID and so much other stuff going on, we've had musical chairs here. And while people are being critical of the kids moving, I'd say look at these coaches. Matter of fact, I have a podcast coming out, number 1 ranked show with Joel Klatt, where we kind of get into this. And he's of the opinion that you probably need better rules for the transfer portal. I say that you don't, because, look, if you do what many people say, right, which is to say you can't transfer during the season or you can't go into the portal during the season, you're still going to have people tampering. It's going to be like the NBA and the NFL. You're going to have folks that are doing this clandestinely, and I would much rather know what people are doing and why they are doing it and on the level than not, because I'd like to be able to track it. I like to be able to say if we're doing everything above board. It's why I'm a big proponent of name, image, and likeness, and I like that the sport is getting closer to being professional. It won't be truly professional till we have a CBA and or union representative, but you could actually do what the UFC does and just not do it. I think you're still going to have people like myself that advocate for the kids to have some representation. And the reason I'm bringing all that up for you is because we don't put the same governor on coaches, okay? And you could say that your argument about them serving their time is BS, A, because nobody cares how much time you serve or whether or not you have your degree if you're the best at what you do. And B, the game is about the players. What they do on a football field matters more than what any coach is going to do off of it. That's the reason you show up to watch the game. That's not to say that coaches are not important. They are, but they're not more important than the players on the football field. But it also goes to show you that, yeah, when you need an offensive line coach, you go get an offensive line coach. But if that offensive line coach can't recruit great players like Brad Davis and James Cregg, you're not going to talk to that offensive line coach because it's about players, right? And I think that's the reason why I like Hot Sauce Davis, who, played at Oklahoma. And I find it interesting that, he's moved around in such a way that he ends up at LSU, and he's going to try to help LSU come out of the SEC West in a division that might be the weakest that it's been in the past 4 years. And it's not weak by any means, right? It's Alabama, it's Texas A&M, it's LSU, it's Arkansas, it's Ole Miss, Mississippi State, it's Auburn. You got some hammers in there, man. And I think it's also interesting that you were able to take a rival coach from a rival SEC West school to help you bolster your program and your squad. And I think all of this is going to matter in some great detail when LSU, Arkansas have to play each other. But that's also one of the reasons I really love the transfer portal, and one of the reasons I really love that the coaches can do what they want to do and the kids can do what they want to do. Like Notre Dame and Wisconsin are going to play each other in Chicago this year. Jack Cohen, quarterback at Wisconsin, transferred to Notre Dame. I would like nothing more than Jack Cohen to be able to start for Notre Dame against Wisconsin in that game, for the sheer fact that I'm selfish about the storyline, right? I don't really care about whether or not, I should back up. I do care whether or not Notre Dame and Wisconsin are good, but I would like to know that that is a possibility more often than not, right? Sorry about this group chat. I'm getting blown up because something called James Madison beat Oklahoma in what is the worst loss for a Women's College World Series team, because Oklahoma is far and away the number one seed, and they get beat by a James Madison team that should have never beaten anybody to get here who's unseeded. But I digress, as you very much know I usually do. But I really am happy for Brad Davis to be able to make this move. I think that LSU made a good decision. I'll be interested to see who Sam Pittman goes to get to fill that void, and maybe, you can go get Randy out of Ole Miss, Randy Clements, who was familiar with running this veer and shoot offensive line. Like when Baylor was Baylor, he was their offensive line coach, right? If you get him, marry him with Kendall Browse, I think you got a squad. Like Randy Clements would be my first call if I'm just Sam Pittman. But I'm also even more interested to see what is going on with James Cregg. And when we know more about that, we'll talk about it. If you like the show, please subscribe to the channel. Like this video, subscribe to the #1 ranked show wherever it is you get your podcasts. If you're using Apple to do that, please leave us a 5-star rating. We are really finding our groove. It's getting to be such a cool show. You're seeing more B-roll. You're seeing the kind of effort and the kind of investment that Fox is putting into the show, and quite frankly, putting in this channel, and I'm grateful for that. We've had outstanding guests: Jim Ross, Bob Stoops, Joel Klatt, Clay Helton, Mac Brown. Like, we keep going here. It's been phenomenal, and we'll continue to get those guests, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Deuces.